Today, I want to share with you the story of John and Jane and their struggle as a couple with the Super Bowl. Sports tend to put a wedge between many couples, but it does not have to be so. What if I were to share with you that you could actually strengthen your couple through the game? Actually, not through the game itself, through the way you handle the game as a couple. Curious? Hello, my name is Valdo Lallemand. I'm a relationship coach. I started the Vibrant Couple a year and a half ago to further my purpose of liberating love to connection and playfulness. John and Jane came to me after seeing a few of my videos and being intrigued by my comment that in a couple, long term, we either bring each other up or we take each other down. And they were very conscious that they were basically in damage limiting mode with the Super Bowl, in which they knew they were taking each other down, but they were doing their best to minimize the damage as possible. When I first met them, Jane shared with me that she knew enough to not nag John that if he really loved her, he would choose her over the game today. But she was somehow at a loss. So I asked her what she knew about men. She had some sort of a puzzled look, like, of course I know about men, but she couldn't articulate anything. So I asked her, well, how about instead of the Super Bowl, the two of you do a puzzle, or how about the two of you read together? She was intrigued by my question, but very clear that something was missing, that there is something in the masculine DNA that is aggressive, needs to have an outlet for that aggression, and that she somehow understood that, the Super Bowl was doing it for John. I shared with her the wonderful work of John Eldredge in his book Wild at Heart, in which he shares that men need three things. One, they need a fight. Second, they need an adventure to live. Very interestingly, she relaxed. She knew deeply that part of John that needed to have that game time and that beer time with his buddies. John then asked, okay, but how about what women need? So I said, thank you, John. Women have equivalent need. Women need to be fought for, and women need to be taken on an adventure. I saw Jane beam. That was what was missing in their couple with the Super Bowl. She didn't really care whether John watched it or not, but she somehow felt left alone, discarded, so that he could have his game time and beer drinking with his buddies. With Jane feeling validated, I turned to John and I told him, hey, this is most likely how Jane looks, this is most likely how Jane feels, and this is most likely what Jane wants. Jane chuckled a little bit, but she somehow, accepted to that fact, which then gave space for John to ask, but what should I do? So John, it is very simple. Her need that you have to meet is for her to feel connected to you right now, during the game, and especially after the game. So tell her, and of course use your own words, that she is the most important fight of your life, that you would do anything for her, that right now you are choosing to watch the game with your friends and drink a few beers because that really soothes you deeply in your masculine, manly nature, and you will be careful to only drink a few beers, and that after the game, you cannot wait to spend time with her and drink a glass of wine. Jane beamed as John touched her deeply. Ding, 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 ding. Jane then asked, but what can I do? I also want to contribute to creating more love in my marriage. I invited her to become more aware that too often women express their discontent in a way that either turns men off or somehow make them unable to hear you. So here I invite you to meet his needs for playfulness and for a fight. So for example, you may invite him to the kitchen and you may, grab a couple utensils and give him one and then you hold one and you invite him into a mock fight and tell him, hey darling, I know you need to fight. I'm so happy you're going to have that Superbowl time. How about when I come back, you fight for me? Jane sighed with relief and told me, I'm liking this because I'm only receiving 2 types of advice on how to get along better with my husband. Some say, hey, forget about men. They are useless. They are worthless. Just live your life, do what you want, do what you need to do, and you'll be happier like that. And the second is learn to follow your husband, learn to follow your man. And so I understand that in, dancing, John and I love to dance salsa, but what does that mean in real life? Does it mean that it's only men leading and I have to follow? I was so glad to hear Jane say that because I often also shriek when I hear that men are useless and worthless and women should just do everything by themselves. Well, some men are worthless, but that's a different story. John is a capable man who dearly loves his wife and he has no major personality disorders or addictions. I then told them about the third thing that men need according to John Elridge, that men need beauty to love. This time it was John who relaxed and sighed. He was delighted to hear me say that because he finds Jane beautiful and is often a little bit at odds with her, in which she somehow keeps telling him, I'm not beautiful, how about this, how about this, how about this, and all the imperfection that she's somehow, at least he's feeling, she's shoving in his face when he doesn't care or doesn't even see them. Jane was a little taken aback, but she knew John was right, and she knew that it was not fair for her to basically project her insecurities, her worries onto him like she was doing. So I shared with her that this is the place in which she can lead with her beauty, with her inner beauty. And basically, if she shows up not feeling beautiful, she's not going to enliven John, and John is not going to beam back, or at least not beam as much love to her as he would otherwise. But if she shows up feeling beautiful, then John is going to beam back, reflect that back to her, how he finds her beautiful and how much he loves her. So John, when you see Jane being in a bad mood with her beauty, this is likely how she feels. And this is likely what she wants. More practically, in regards to the Super Bowl, tell her now that she's the most beautiful woman you've ever met and that after the game, you're going to sweep her off her feet. Jane began swooning because she felt so seen and loved by John. I then turned to her and told her that what John needs to hear is that she sees him as her hero. She is so happy to be married with him. She's so grateful how often he shows up and provides and protects her. And she fully gets that he wants to watch the game and that she cannot wait to be swept off her feet by her hero when she comes back home after the game. How about sex? Before I continue with the story of John and Jane, I want to share a couple mistakes that couples make too often. Men make the mistake of approaching their woman to sex or even to talk about sex when she is not in the mood. If you have not noticed, I invite you to go back about 2 minutes and notice how Jane warms up from being seen, heard, validating, and feeling loved by John. The mistake that women make too often is they approach, same as earlier when they see connection, they tend to approach their men in a way that is more morose, that is more, you don't give me the sex I need. By now you know, this is what they feel, and this is what they want. John was delighted to hear that and shared that although they have a fairly healthy sex life and both of them enjoy sex, he always feels somehow self-conscious to invite her to sex. And asked me, what he could do to make things smoother. The first part of my answer did not surprise him because he felt very guilty of not doing enough, which is basically sending messages, sending flowers, telling his wife how beautiful she is all day long so that she could feel in that simmering in his love for her. The second part of my answer surprised him. I told him that although she enjoys sex, she enjoys the pleasure, what she really wants is to spend time with him, to feel connected to him, to be taken on an adventure by him, and that the more he was, of course, inviting her sexually, but the less it was about sex and goals and orgasms, the better it would be. Jane beamed, and remembering that John loves to be acknowledged as her hero, she appreciated how he does that quite a bit already, and asked what could they do more of? And so I invited them to engage with each other in a way that would be appreciating their body, appreciating her beauty, appreciating their love life in a way that was more sensual than sexual. And then I told Jane that one of the easiest way to figure out men from a woman's perspective, which by the way is the same as women from a man's perspective, is to do the opposite of what you would normally do. So in this case, I recommended to John that he would be more sensual than sexual. And so the opposite is to be more sexual than sensual. So basically, show him some things that he would get later if he's not too tired and has not drunk too much after the game. Knowing John and Jane well, I knew they would keep exploring as a way of bringing each other up. If this video inspired you to liberate more love, but know that you need a little bit more than just watching this video, I'm available for one-on-one coaching and I'm putting the link in the description below. I look forward to seeing you very soon.